Like, nobody does it better than the porn sites for getting you to watch those videos.
I love your picture, by the way. Can we just say that?
My picture on LinkedIn.
No, the picture you sent me for the podcast. I'm very excited.
I don't know what picture I sent you.
Oh, okay. It was one from your OnlyFans account. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that would be the one.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get the platforms muddled up, which is
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I mean, without being funny, they are very similar, though, aren't they?
Well, OnlyFans.
OnlyFans and LinkedIn. There's definitely a collaboration,
I've never
similarity.
spent huge amounts of time on OnlyFans, so
Me
I
neither.
don't spend any time on OnlyFans.
Me neither. But I did find out from a friend of mine who's a mortgage advisor, that mortgage companies are actually looking at things like OnlyFans and like, you know, William Hill for like gambling. They actually see that as like gambling addictions and stuff when people are sticking to commitments for like mortgages. And if they saw a certain amount of like OnlyFans or something like that commitments, they would probably take that into account with people's like money lending.
Well, yeah. I suppose it'd be a bit like sitting in a lap dancing club every night, paying for. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I've actually got a friend who does messaging. So she's a messaging mentor, and she has this thing about God, we're going, but she has a thing about Pornhub being absolutely incredible at hooks for messaging. Like, nobody does it better than the porn sites for getting you to watch those videos.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, if you want some content help, then, you know, go and have a look on Pornhub and see what they're up to with their messages.
Right. Okay. Anyway, we're going to end this podcast now. Thank you so much for coming, Janine. And I'm just going to quickly nip off and check out some marketing advice.
Go for it.
But isn't that interesting though? Because like I think there's something in that, and I know I joke about like OnlyFans, but there's some like people are blowing up on these platforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's people sitting there going, "Oh, I don't know, I do gardening, for instance, and everyone's got a garden." Do you know what I mean? Not everyone, but you know what I mean. But like, so why is that working and other stuff isn't? That really is something that's always kind of like triggered me a little bit, because like other stuff really blows up. Do you think that's the demand, or do you think that's what do you think that is?
Oh God, what you mean? Why somebody with a gardening channel wouldn't necessarily have the virality that somebody who's doing something kind of?
Yeah.
It probably does come back down to hooks, though. I suspect
Yeah.
if you were a gardening business and you got your hooks right, or a gardening, you know, influencer,
We're probably going to come out with a load of cheesy hooks for gardeners in a minute,
I
aren't
think
we?
it is all about, like, you know, if you look at the structure of things like TikTok videos or, you know, Instagram videos that go viral, they're incredibly good at hooking you with that first moment.
Yeah.
And keeping you continue watching and then wrapping it all up at the end. So you get that story, I suppose, of what's grabbed you, delivering what they want. You know, we'll talk about clickbait. They're the most annoying videos in the world, aren't they? When you're like, they tell you something's going to happen and then it doesn't happen. And you're like, I've just literally wasted like 3 minutes of my life watching something that you've lied to me about. But if you deliver on your promise in the initial hook, then, I mean, I've got no interest in gardening, so it's probably not the best topic for me. But
no, I know, but that's the thing, isn't it? That for me, I always quite look at that in the sense of it is a boring topic for me. So like, how would they make it work? Because if I can make it work for a gardener in my mind with my business or with any business, like you could see how you could then move that forward in other ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say to my clients, a really good exercise is being intentional with what you're doing. So when you're on Instagram or you're on TikTok or you're on, you know, even LinkedIn, it's about you being conscious of what you're consuming. Because if you're conscious of what you're consuming, the chances are, if you've consumed something in its entirety, it was probably pretty good.
Yeah.
So, you know, for instance, there's a lot of cooking stuff on my Insta, which is quite ironic because I don't do a huge amount of cooking. But, you know, kind of like meal prep, you know, we're all trying to like, you know, we all want to make our lives as easy as possible. And the stuff that I watch all the way through is always the thing where the finished dish is at the beginning and it looks amazing. And I want to know how they made it. I'm probably never going to make it, but I want to know. And it's like, actually, if you intentionally think about why did I watch that video all the way through, you'll learn a lot about how to create content. by
Yeah.
watching people who do well.
So what was your transition then? Because you help people kind of go from Instagram to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You know my first question, didn't you?
What?
Why?
Why? Um, do you know what? And I'm not a massive fan of like blaming the algorithm for stuff. And I think often it's not the algorithm's fault at all. It's the fact that your content's probably not very good is the reason why it's not performing on
Hmm.
any platform. I do think though the algorithm on Insta has got harder and harder and harder and harder. So I've been Instagramming, I suppose, for business for probably like 6, 7 years.
Hmm.
I had a break from it for about a year for various reasons. I came back to Insta and was like, holy cow, it is so quick, that platform now. It is just lightning quick. Grid posts are just harder and harder and harder to get traction on. Everything happens in the stories, which is great, but the stories are a real hustle. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
showing up on stories like 5, 6 times a day, trying to think of something to share, trying to put stuff that's sales based together and something that shows personality. It feels like a hustle.
Yeah.
And they keep, I think, probably more so than LinkedIn, they love to change that platform. Good Lord, they love to change that platform.
Yeah.
Facebook's on its arse totally, in my opinion. If you run a business, I think they've made it so difficult over there to get
Yeah.
any growth. And I think LinkedIn is really where, as a business owner, the opportunities exist to become an authority in what you do, to share how you think. Because I think people really give a shit how you think on Instagram. I think like
Yeah.
they want to see pretty stuff. They want to see, they you can be really relatable on Instagram and you can do well. But I think over on LinkedIn, people want to see how you think. And I think LinkedIn comes with so many opportunities to, like, if you want the speaking gigs, if you want the podcast invites, if you want the PR stuff, it's there on LinkedIn. And I just think it's an easier platform to be a business because I suppose it is a business platform. Like people are there to do business. Whereas on Insta, my Insta feed, it's full of, people cooking, cute cats. I love hamsters. Cute hamsters doing funny little things. Yeah, and then in the side that I got a post from Andy who's trying to tell me about how to increase my confidence or my work-life balance or whatever. And it's like it's such a blur of information over there.
I'd never try and teach you to increase your work-life balance. Balance is
No.
bullshit, remember?
Oh yeah, I remember. Tell me
So
life coaching. I'll see
no,
something about that.
no, but do you know what's interesting? I've got 2 Instagram accounts.
Yeah.
On my Instagram account for me as just me, it used to be just, oh yeah, cool. I think my first Instagram account was my Instagram post was, which think I've archived it now because I was like, well, this is weird. It was like a photo of or a video of me saying nuts, and on the packet it said may contain nuts, and I was like, oh my god! Like at the time, I remember thinking it was quite funny, but it was just a personal one to start with, and it grew into kind of what it is now. My other account is my music account, and it's just, it's full of guitar people that I follow, like musicians I follow, bands I love, and I can go on that and I cannot see a single person fall down the stairs. I can't see a cute dog on it because that algorithm is so tuned to what I look at it on that channel. But the other one is, it's full of, this post from you, this post from people, all through in like the business world. But then there's also I'm not cute cats. I'm a dog lover, but there's dogs landing in
I know why I
swimming
said that because
pools.
I don't really like cats either. So it's
Yeah, there's
hamsters.
there's dogs going down slides. You name it. And then there's all the other crap that goes with it. But then there's also, I find as well, a lot of stuff that just doesn't interest me whatsoever. Whereas when I go onto LinkedIn, for me personally, I know that the people on there, and it comes back to this one thing that I talk about quite a lot, they're on there for a purpose.
Mhm.
They're not on there to doom scroll. You don't go onto LinkedIn to doom scroll, do you?
No, you don't. No,
Apart from, I go on there for your entertaining posts, to be fair.
absolutely. And you go on there to actively engage as well if you're doing it properly,
Hmm.
and you're right, Insta especially and Facebook, it's become so heavily pay to play. And don't get me wrong, as a business owner, there are ways to use the ads to your advantage. That is a
Yeah.
bonus to Insta because LinkedIn ads, if you haven't got 50 quid a day, you might as well not bother. So you've got to
Yeah.
have a reasonable budget, especially as a small business owner to take LinkedIn ads seriously. But over on Insta, for the £5 a day, you can get your content in front of more people. But what that also means, is like every third post is an ad.
Yeah.
And your stories, every 3 stories, it's an ad. And it, yeah, I think it becomes almost I find myself getting fed up with it. I
Mhm.
find it just becomes, I don't want to see that. And,
Yeah.
I want to see stuff I want to see. And you're right, it's quite interesting actually. It's an interesting exercise. And obviously you do it anyway. But if you do have to, so sometimes I log into other people's Instagram accounts because might be doing some engagement for them and stuff over there. And I worked with a golf brand at one point. And when you go into a golf, everything's golf.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're like, and because it thinks I'm a man, or I was a man at the time, I was a man, but the person was a man that I logged in as. Um, it's all like aftershave and fancy shoes and watches and golf and like, yeah, it's clever how it delivers what it thinks you're interested in, isn't it?
Yeah. So what's been the biggest shift for you then since you've kind of yourself moved over to LinkedIn? Is there something that you've seen like dramatically change within your business then?
I think I just wanted a bit more. I felt like I was, I don't know, maybe playing it small a little bit on Instagram. I think there's plenty of business owners on Instagram who make a bloody good living and go nowhere near LinkedIn.
Mm.
I sort of saw an opportunity, I suppose. I like to write, so LinkedIn lends itself well to me as a platform because I do enjoy writing. I enjoy video and prancing around and editing and all the faff that goes with that less. So it just felt like a bit of a natural move for me. And people have been telling me for years, LinkedIn is where it's where business is done.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I didn't necessarily believe that because I think business is done on Instagram too.
Yeah.
And when you're making a living out of what you're doing on Instagram, why would you move? But there's been a notable shift in my business in moving over for sure.
Amazing, amazing. We need to talk about this because this is something that was probably the first time I was first aware of you. And then we met in the Holt and I went, oh my God, you're minced beef lady.
Yeah, that's
So
me.
how did you come up with that post? And was that just like, was that strategic or was that just like, oh, why are they doing this? And how did that work?
Yeah, I mean, it was massively strategic, obviously, it wasn't at all. So I do have a content strategy though, and my content strategy exists around I'm big into storytelling, but
Mhm.
only if they're relevant to your audience. Nobody gives a shit about your story if it's only about you. Like they want to
No.
know how it relates back to them. I coach and preach and insert the buyer journey into my content. So it's about like taking people from being problem aware and through to solution aware and product aware. So that becomes part of my content strategy. So you'll see me creating different types of content depending on where people are along that buyer journey. But the other thing I did and that changed the game for me on LinkedIn was just have a bit of bloody fun.
Mhm.
And I do some rants as well. There's the odd post where I'm like, oh, for God's sake, this is doing my head in. But I do like a post that's a bit tongue in cheek, and it's kind of real. And the minced beef thing, I was literally cooking my kids. I was making spaghetti bolognese for me and my kids, and I don't think I'd used vacuum packed mince till this point. And I put it in the pan, and it just broke up into cubes. And I just thought, you know what? This has annoyed me. I'm going to write a post about it. And the next thing I knew, and it actually didn't do very much in about the first 2 hours. It maybe got to about 1,000 impressions. And I was like, that's that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking that. That's not a bad amount of impressions. And it just went up and up and up and up. And think I went to bed that night and it was on like 25,000 impressions.
Wow.
And I was talking on the phone to my partner and he was like, oh, it'll get to like 35,000. And I was like, nah. So it'll get to about 30 and it'll slow down. I think I woke up the next morning, it'd done 50.
Wow. Oh.
It just carried on for days. And I think it was about 220, 240. It finished on. But then the content off the back of it, that did really well as well. So I think I had another post off of the back of it that did, I can't remember off the top of my head, I need to check the numbers, but that did about 35,000 of me
Mhm.
moaning about the fact that, the crap I had for that post. Got a lot of flack for that post though. It
Yeah, I
wasn't
bet.
easy. I didn't even think I don't think past the moment sometimes.
Mhm.
So I didn't consider that this was a sustainability message, or it was about, you know, reducing packaging or reducing supply chain costs. I was like, it annoys me. I'm cooking my dinner and it's no good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's weird, isn't it? Because that's sometimes the things that we don't always consider is the outcome of what other people's perception might be on that post. And you know, I'm going to mention it now, but I'm not going to say the word because I got shouted at. But we had a comment that was made on the podcast a couple of weeks back, and someone referred to themselves as a certain word, introvert or extrovert, I think it was, and someone commented on the post, and I was like, I've never even considered this word to be offensive. I met this person a couple of weeks ago, actually at an event, and she said, "Oh, is that woman who said about the R word here?" And I went, "No." But I didn't realize that that word was so triggering. And do you know what I mean? It's like, I got this like influx of like negativity. And I thought, wow, this person, I didn't see their perspective. And like, it's interesting, isn't it? When you look at it, like, you know, the sustainability thing on that post, it's like, amazing. That's good. I'm not going to lie. It's making everyone's food shit. So actually, he's probably putting everyone in a bad mood.
Yeah, and the problem with me is I'm a bit of an arguer. I always have been a bit disruptive. And to me, it's like, okay, I get it. I get it. So they've reduced, and I'm also a bit of a cynic. And I'm like, I know I've got a degree in retail management. So you know, I don't consider. And this was one of the things that really annoyed me about that post. Like, I had a lot of mansplaining on that post,
Right.
and it was mostly, in fact, it was pretty much all men, basically
Was it like,
insinuating.
this is what your wife cooks for you? This is food. This is what happens before it ends up on your plate.
Yeah, but insinuating I was stupid, okay? And they made me feel like I was stupid. And I was like, look, I am not stupid. And I also know how retail works. And if retailers can make more money out of something, they will.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of products in our supermarket today where there could be a sustainability switch made. For instance, why are our bananas all in plastic bags? Like, how is that? You know, there's so many things
Why are
yeah.
they taping my bananas in Tesco's right now? What's that all about? Bananas are
Oh,
attached. They're putting a bit of tape around to hold the bananas together. Bananas are attached together.
yeah. It's kind of a natural, naturally occurring thing in bananas.
Yeah.
But I did, and I the trouble with that post was I had so many comments on it. You can't keep up with them all. And B, I'd get into little mini arguments with so many of them. And in the end, I just had to walk away from it because I was like, look, I can't. This was stole my energy. And I always say it's a big part of, you know, my story is you do not want to go viral like that regularly.
No.
I had one blow up not that long after, which was about the number of unread messages on my phone. I don't know if you remember that one. That
I
did
think
about
that one probably would have triggered me.
did like 125,000 impressions on that one. And it was like, people were like, you must be so disorganized. You know, when you're like, well, what? Because I've got unread messages on my phone. Like, does that mean
Or
I'm
I'm
disorganized?
actually so busy that, yeah, you're probably right. I probably need to employ someone just to read my messages.
Read my messages. I am that popular. But yeah, yeah, people are funny. And you know, I did get a lot of hate and a lot of people as well who annoy me, like, you should go to the butchers and buy your meat. I probably should, yeah, you know, but you know, I'm not like I
Do you
don't
know
can't
what the
afford to shop
thing?
in Waitrose. I shop in Aldi.
Yeah, do you know what the thing that bugs me with all of that kind of that post as well, and this isn't a reflection on you, is the fact that, let's look at the bigger picture here, right? Tesco, Sainsbury's, all the main retailers, they're all doing it. They're all reducing their costs. They're all making it get there so we can then send one lorry full of minced beef rather than 30 lorries. We're still paying more money.
Exactly,
The money's still
exactly.
going up. You're still charging people more money and you're saving loads of money. It doesn't ever get to the retailer, the actual, the consumer, does it?
It doesn't. And actually, yeah, and do you know what? Aside from all the hate and then obviously some dodgy DMs as well from some creepy men.
Sorry about
Yeah, no, you're all right. I've forgiven you. No, what I did also learn about LinkedIn there is some really lovely people jumped to my defense. And, you know, I did have a lot of this is on Facebook. But actually people jumped in and said, well, hang on a minute, actually, this is a business. It's interest story. It's about packaging, it's about sustainability, it's about product quality. And I had some really, really lovely people who did like jump in on some of these comments and say, you know what?
that.
I think you're wrong.
Mm.
So yeah, I learned a lot, but I don't. Yeah, and there was no strategy behind it past a moment. And I, those little, and I, funnily enough, I put a post on Instagram yesterday about this, about how I used to think I had nothing to say on LinkedIn. I would open LinkedIn and I would be like, oh my God, right, I don't cold water swim. I don't jump in an ice bath every morning. I don't do Pilates. I will wake up in the morning, I take my kids to school and I come home and I work in my spare bedroom, right?
Yeah.
That's my life. I go and pick them up, I cook them dinner, and I sit and watch Below Deck on telly at night. That's my life, right?
Right.
Pretty much. I might read the odd book. I do stuff at the weekends, but again, that's not over. I don't park run. I don't do anything that's particularly exciting. And I was like, what can I say? What can I bloody talk about on LinkedIn? And actually, it's that switch of realizing stories are everywhere. You just need to tune into them.
Yeah, and I love the fact that your story that blew up, you were just cooking dinner for the kids and maybe your partner, that every mum, dad who's in business is probably going, oh, cooking tea then. I go, oh yeah, I remember that post on, because they're going to remember stuff because it's relatable to their real life, right? And I think that's one thing that people try too much to do. We always talk about everyone always talks about the people who like sit by, I made 7 figures. And like, my most popular post recently was where I said I made 6 figures this year. I put a picture up of 6 Lego figures that I made. It's the most popular post I've had this year. You know why? Because most people can relate to the fact that, one, they've probably played with Lego before, and two, they're sick to death of people going, I can show you how to make 6 figures.
Yeah.
So how do you help people then in that sense of like going from or creating? Because obviously you create content for people, and so how does it all work with what you do?
Yeah, so my business is essentially split down the middle. So half of the time I spend creating content for people. So
Mhm.
if people don't want to write their own posts, I can help them to do that. And I kind of pull those ideas out of their brain. So the
Mhm.
people who don't think they've got anything to say, we help them be don't really like the word thought leader, but that's what people want to be on LinkedIn.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the other half is coaching. So I help people. I would always prefer to coach somebody than I would to do their content for them, because I don't think the authenticity is there. Even when
Mhm.
I do it, I don't think it's as authentic as when you do it yourself. And it really is about that. I mean, you can go on YouTube and learn how LinkedIn works. It's a platform, you click this happens, you go here, this happens. But
Mhm.
actually knowing how to use the platform properly is different from knowing how to use the platform. So it's a bit of that, but it's a lot of the content piece. It's opening your eyes to all of that magic that is around you and those moments, and how you can create a content strategy around that. And also, I always say you could create the best content in the world, but what you do in the DMs is really important. How you track stuff, how you
Mhm.
have a system to go back to people, and you build relationships. Like no one wants cold pitching, do they?
No.
But you can get to the point where you can pitch to people by nurturing the relationship, and it's a
Yeah.
whole
Yeah. So I love the fact that you're on your Instagram, I've just looked over to remind myself it was content with Janine, but I always feel like it's content with
there
Janine.
was a little play there.
I love that. I love that. So how does it work then, like for you, when it comes to like, if I was, and as you know, I do like creating content, although sometimes I have a love-hate relationship with it. If you were someone who was like looking to start going over to LinkedIn, what would be the first, if you've given them like just one piece of advice, what would it be if you were like joining LinkedIn? Because I have spoken to probably 10 people in the last week who've gone, oh, I'm not on LinkedIn. And I'm like, what? And
Yeah,
like, if you'd have said that to me 5 years ago, I would have been like, so who cares about LinkedIn? It's just for like, my mind for LinkedIn is it used to be just a place to go and look for jobs.
it really was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like Read, wasn't it? You know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My biggest piece of advice, if you before you switch, is to get dead clear on what you do.
Hmm.
Like one of my biggest bugbears on LinkedIn is people whose headlines are stuff with s- I'm a nutritionist. I'm a holistic healer. I'm a mindset coach. I don't know. There's like 5 things in there, and like I think
No.
more so than certainly Instagram, you've got to be dead clear on what you do, and that might mean dropping some stuff, which is tough. But I think you've got to be clear. I do other stuff. I help people with other platforms. I can do people's Instagram for them. But on LinkedIn, I don't talk about that. I talk about
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you don't do other things. It just means your messaging is clear. And I think that's the biggest thing. And also just going back to that ideal client piece, which I know is dull at times, but really having that understanding of what you help people with.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there something that you think people, I mean, I know you just said about people having like a list of like stuff they do, but is there something that people you see more often that people do that makes it really unclear, or is it just that list of
I think the biggest thing is a lack of transformation in
mm,
headline. I see it. I do free LinkedIn audits with people, and 99% of them are missing that transformation. Like, people don't give a shit what you do. They
mm,
give a shit about what you do for them. That's it. Yeah. I
yeah,
don't care. If you're going to coach me, I don't care what you're going to do. It's a bit like if I go to the gym. Yeah. So I want to be trim for my holiday. I want to look great in a bikini. That's what I want. I don't really care that you're going to make me do 25 burpees. You're going to make me do this. You're going to make me do that. You're going to make me run I want the end result. And
yeah.
so many business owners like get so caught up in the process that they forget why people are actually coming to them.
I love that. I love that. What I really love about what you're saying now is it's interesting because I've seen this particularly with my other business, the media business that I've been running for years, and that is that a lot of the clients, when they ask for video or photography or anything, they actually don't know what they want at the end. They don't know what they want it to do. And I think that's something that's interesting, isn't it? Because if they don't know what they want it to do, it's hard to create that vision for them. And I think that's something that when you're creating a post or creating your I mean the amount of times I must have changed my profile titles like 100 times since I've had LinkedIn. But that's because I've realized that I've looked at it and a word doesn't line up, or this, or we tweak these things. But I think, it is being open and being flexible with what you're doing, but being able to like get it right, because you can't always get it wrong, can you? Because you keep getting it wrong. Do you know what I mean? You will end up being in a situation where like no one's going to trust you with what you say.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to kind of try and stay in your lane a little bit, haven't you? And not change your mind every 5 minutes. But yeah, I don't know if it's written in blood. I always say to people, you can change this stuff. We're not in a world anymore like 25 years ago. If you were setting up a business, you'd be going out and you'd be printing business cards and you'd be printing brochures and you'd be printing leaflets and you'd be putting ads in the yellow pages. And, stuff was a lot more. We've all got incredibly short memories as well. And I think we're incredibly lucky that we can pivot our businesses and we can change our messaging and tweak our messaging. And, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're not changing completely all the time because
Yeah, yeah.
people lose face. But
It's funny you say that. I actually, my very, 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 very first wedding I ever photographed, which was paid, I put in the yellow pages, and it was a couple from London who booked me for a wedding down in near Plymouth, and I don't live anywhere near any of those places. And I remember at the time going, "Whoa, that really worked." Like, do you know what I mean? And now you look at it now, it's like, well, actually, I've got even more reach now. People have got so much more reach now, haven't they? There's so many more opportunities now.
drives
Um,
me mad that people moan about it. Like, my first job out of university was working in like a business development role, and I cold called around about 120 people a day.
wow.
And I got through to maybe three secretaries, two of which told me to piss off.
Yeah.
Maybe got through to one person all day. That was my job.
Wow.
I
In
didn't do it
about
for long
in
because it
about
was
two
soul
in a,
destroying.
in about 2003, I worked at a mobile phone company. And we used to do what we called street fighting. I don't know if you ever remember walking down the street. Phones for You used to do this as well. But we were on the main high street, so we used to walk out and be like, "Hey, what kind of phone have you got?" Like, it was really weird because when you actually think about it, it's awful, it's icky, and it's really gross. But actually, everyone's got a mobile phone, so we used to be like, we used to go out there, and honestly, if we went out on the street and started, it was quiet. We'd only ever do it, and it was quiet. But we'd go out on the street and start street fighting. Guaranteed, 1 in 10 people would buy a mobile phone because everyone's got one in their pocket, and it's just that simple thing. And it's like, you sometimes you gotta you've got to go out there and do that thing and be present. But like say 120 calls a day, that would have driven me bloody insane.
And actually, one of my biggest frustrations, and I'm actually about to just develop something exactly for this, is like LinkedIn sales teams. Having worked in sales for so many years, like there's so many businesses. I know 3, like just now, literally, who are in my world, whose sales teams do not use LinkedIn properly. And you've got this opportunity to go and find your ideal clients and nurture the relationships with them. And the gone are the days when you got to just bang phones, because there's other ways to do it. And so many businesses are missing an opportunity with LinkedIn, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, there might be something coming that's slightly different kind
Oh,
of corporate offering, but
another exclusive. I like that.
watch this.
So Janine, how can people find you? What's the best way for people to, I mean, I know how to find you, so I just want to hear it from your mouth, basically.
You can find me on LinkedIn. So I'm Janine Sykes over there, or on Instagram. As you said, content with Janine, or even content with Janine, whichever way you want to say it. I still hang out on Instagram because obviously I specialize in bringing the business owners from there.
Yeah.
So I go and speak to lots of business owners on there who need to come over to LinkedIn. And then, yeah, on LinkedIn, you'll find me generally talking about probably not minced beef anymore. And I actually saw somebody copy that post.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not exactly word for word, but I was like, I wonder where you got that idea from.
I think people copying you is the biggest compliment you could ever have, right?
Yeah, I guess so. It
I
doesn't really bother me.
No, and I mean, don't get me wrong. There's in the music world, everyone copies everyone, but I think when you see someone doing what you're doing, you're like, okay, cool, that's confirmation that I'm doing it right. Because
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. But yeah, it's so you'll find me posting a whole host of things. I post every day on LinkedIn, certainly every weekday.
nice,
Um, and I've got
amazing.
so much to say that I could probably post 3 times a day, but I don't. Just once.
Just once. I love
Good.
that. Janine, thank you so much. You've been an absolute superstar. And I'm just going to continue sliding into your DMs and laughing at your posts because they always make me chuckle.
Awesome. I'm doing a good job then.
And that wraps up today's episode of the Coffee, Chaos and Confidence podcast with me, Coach Casey. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you like and subscribe. It helps other listeners find the show. Also, go and check out the show notes to learn more about my incredible guests. Until next time, make sure you chase your dreams without limitations.